How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the first episode of our DataFrenchy Podcast series, where we'll be talking about a variety of topics, starting today about my journey breaking into data analytics. For this podcast, it's typically unedited. The only time I might have to make an edit is in case one of my three cats want to bother me or make some noise or run around, fight each other, whatever. But besides that, it's pretty unedited, whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening to your car or listening to it while you're cooking dinner, anything like that. I'm really looking forward to diving more into certain topics, a little more in depth than, let's say, some of my LinkedIn posts or some of the edited videos I do on YouTube. So I'm really looking forward to this. So getting right into it, at least introducing myself, a little more about my background. I come from here in New Jersey. I grew up right on the Jersey Shore, and no, it's nothing like what you saw in that. If you were around watching Jersey Shore, the TV show on MTV, it's nothing like that. Definitely coming from a sports background has gotten me into data. I've been around that very much of my life, especially being in sport of baseball, where everything I do, whether I'm hitting, throwing, stealing bases, anything like that, everything's being tracked with data. So being around numbers for ever since I've been like 3 or 4, been playing baseball since 3 or 4. Also realizing at school, most subjects, pretty much any subject except for math, was not my favorite. So I found out really early, especially when my mother told me, I'm a huge New York Yankees fan. I would go to games and she would say, "Oh, who's number 25?" I would name the player. Who's number 7? I would name the player. And I knew right then, well, she more knew, that numbers for some reason with me clicked. And it might be because on my dad's side, my grandpa, very good with numbers. He ran an accounting firm locally, and they wanted me to become an accountant going into college. And I realized, even though I'm good at numbers, there's just no way I'm doing that. There's just no way I could do that the rest of my life. So coming from a sports background, I wanted to stay in that industry, especially when I was looking to choose a major for college. And I chose sports management as my major, and I quickly realized that was not the best choice, at least for me. And I thought data analytics was a competitive field. The sports industry is a whole different realm. That is definitely an industry where you have to know people to really make any kind of difference in your career. And I realized that halfway through college, I dropped out in my junior year, came back home, and I thought to myself, okay, what could I do with my life? Because I never had a plan with anything. I just wanted to play baseball. And clearly, when you're 18, 19 years old, you're not really thinking all the way through. So I came back home, worked a couple part-time jobs. I was a pro shop manager at a local hockey rink, and I don't know anything about hockey. I've watched it. I get it. I don't know how to skate. I don't really know anything about it. But I told myself, you know what, I'll teach myself. I naturally enjoyed selling. I felt it was pretty easy talking to customers, trying to get them to look at certain equipment, helping out with the skates. But then after 10 months, I realized that making $12 an hour, that just probably wasn't going to do it for me. I definitely got a little sick of it. Not really what I needed, and I felt like I could be doing something better with my time and my life. So after that, I thought to myself, what could I do? Like, what really could I do? I took a job just to take it, but what could I really do with myself that actually could bring value into what I'm doing? So then I saw a posting for a baseball instructor, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is the perfect opportunity for me. I played baseball my whole life. Like, this could be it, right? This could be like what I'm trying to do. And something that you don't need a degree for. I mean, if you have baseball experience, you could be an instructor. It's like anything else. So I took the job. That was around like 14 an hour. Started off at just 20 hours a week and did a little bit here and there, worked with some of the, lessons, helped with some of the teams. And it came very clear that even beforehand, I always thought to myself, like, I didn't like working with kids. I just wasn't good with it. But I found out actually that I clicked pretty well with kids, through sports. I felt like I took my selling skills from my previous job into the baseball industry, and it definitely was paying off from a lesson standpoint. The teams, definitely seeing how much revenue I was bringing into the company, how many clients I was retaining. and using data once again to back up what I was doing. So when I went for a raise, I was like, hey, like this is what I've done. This is my retention rate. This amount of revenue I brought in for the teams. And I used data to back that up, and it came in very handy. So going through that, I then took some other baseball jobs, worked my way up to being a general manager of a facility, helping the in and outs, helping with the budgets, working in Excel, doing some spreadsheets, just nothing too crazy. Running a facility around 15, 20 people. So definitely using some managerial skills there. And I was doing that for about 3 years. And then COVID hit in 2020, and I was basically out of a job for a little bit because, of course, we were relying on people coming in to, do lessons and trainings. And of course, if you can't be in person, then you don't really have a business. So I found out right there and then that my industry could definitely be affected, whether it's through something like that or weather. You can't go outside for certain things that could affect how much you get paid on the side. And I felt that there's no way I could stick with this industry the rest of my life based on the inconsistencies and the lack of stability in anything. And the work hours. I mean, if you don't really know me, I was working around 65 hours a week for, I think, about 4 or 5 years. And it never really affected me because I'd never thought about it because that's all I knew. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know, like, the people who worked 40 hours a week. I'm like, how could they just do 40 hours? Like, I don't get how they could pay their bills or anything like that. And I kept saying to myself, I have to do 60 or 65 to maintain my living, to really just do anything. And that's all I knew. I worked 6 days a week, sometimes every day of the week, and I just didn't know anything else. So definitely when COVID happened, it made me rethink a lot. And I told myself once again, and I find that was a time where a lot of people figured out what they actually want to do with their time in their career. And I told myself a lot. I'm like, you know what I really want to do, my actual, I would say not dream, but an ideal situation would be a math teacher while being a high school baseball coach. So, teaching at the school while being the head coach. And I thought that was going to be a situation, but I lacked my confidence in teaching. But I realized through baseball that I can teach, but now I have to figure out a way to transition that into a classroom, which is a little bit different. We're on the baseball field. It's a little different than, coaching. I could be a little bit strict, a little bit on top of the kids, but when it comes to the classroom, it's not like that. It's a little bit different. So I told myself, you know what? With this time off I have, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get my bachelor's in education. And I did that. I went to Western Governors University, which is, I can't recommend that enough. If you are a person that really can work at your own pace and definitely, have a mentor there, they're not too crazy. You might check in like once a week, once every 2 weeks. But if you really are independent and can control your own destiny and your path, Western Governors is a fantastic school for value also. So I did that. That took about a year and a half, 2 years to get. So in about 2021, summer 2021 is when I got my bachelor's, and that's when I signed on to be a teacher. So at that point, I made baseball kind of like a part-time thing. I just did it on the side, and I took a teaching job as a gym teacher, actually. I immediately didn't get a math teaching job. I'm like, you know what? I want to get into a school, get whatever position could at least be close to what I want to do, and then in time can transition into a math role. So I took a gym teacher job, and I was doing it for about a month, and that was tough. It was very, very tough. It's like I said, a little bit different. I thought it was gonna be similar to baseball. I'm like, oh, sports, we're all moving around. No, these kids were they were hectic. It was something. So I told myself, like, yeah, like I got away from baseball because of that. I didn't want to be in a gym running around 6-7 hours a day. Like, I wanted to be in the classroom. So I wouldn't say lucky enough, but one of the teachers got fired a month in, and she was a 5th grade math teacher. And within 2 minutes getting that email, they sent out the email like, hey, we like of a teacher. We're looking for a new one. I just sent the email right away. I didn't even make it fancy or anything. I'm like, hey, I see the opening. I want it. Can we talk? And then the next day they called me in and they gave me the job. So very happy with that situation. And then I finally was at where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a math teacher. And middle school, fifth, sixth grade is definitely the type of math I like working with. More algebra, pretty straightforward, multiplication, division. So I did that. And that first year was probably while it was definitely the most mentally draining year of my adult life / career, it was the most rewarding and eye opening. I realized right there and then that teaching is what I like to do. It's everything I want to do in life. There's nothing in life I enjoy more than helping a kid learn and succeed and believe in themselves. Like, it's something that cannot be beat. And especially working in inner city Philadelphia, it was very rewarding to see the little efforts I did that brought the most out of kids, seeing their test scores go up, seeing their parents be so happy with their test scores, their grades, and it was just awesome. It was a great time. But as I said before, it seems that most jobs I took were always putting others before me, and it just destroyed me. It really is a job, and I think for anyone, if you're a teacher, you got my full support. But education is I could go off on that on another time, but education is definitely a field that's in dire need for lots of help. So after about a year and a half as a teacher, I once again told myself, okay, this is what I want to do, but this ends up, does not what I want to do actually. And it was sad. I'm like, okay, but now I have a degree in education and I'm 27. What do I do now? I just spent all this time and money on getting this education degree, but now I don't want to do it. 1 second. So I'm like, okay, what could I do? What am I good at? And, math, numbers, that's what I'm good at. Well, I believe I'm good at. And I was looking around with my fiance, who, by the way, was my main support and the reason for everything. All the ups and downs of my other jobs, being a teacher, being now a data analyst, like she was responsible for everything, really helped me along the way, guide me in the right direction, really helped me, not give up when it was getting rough. So I'm very grateful for her. And we were talking and she was saying that, why don't we look at like software development, like coding? Because she used to do work with a recruiting company, and she always saw so many of the tech jobs out there. She's like, oh, like tech seems to be hiring. Why don't we take a look at that? So I did more research on software development, tried some coding with I think like Java and whatnot. It was okay. But once again, I feel like that wasn't hitting where I was good at. I felt like I was going okay, but I'm like, there's no way I'm going to come out of nowhere and get a job over some of these other people who are just tech savvy people. Like, there's just no way. There's no way I could beat those people out. So I hit the drawing board again, and I'm like, okay, what else can I do? And that's where I came across the Google data analytics certificate. And I'm like, data analyst, what does it do? Analyzes data. I'm like, okay, that's pretty straightforward. But I'm like, you know what? That's kind of what I've been doing my whole life, in a way. Through baseball, teaching, I feel like I genuinely could do the job. I just have no idea what these technical tools look like or anything. I have no idea what they're talking about. So, do more research. I look into the certificate and what it does. And I'm like, you know what? This seems like a pretty good opportunity. I could learn the skills, get the certificate, and be on my way into this brand new career. And I'm a pretty easygoing person. I'm not a person that needs a lot. I didn't care if the job was on site. I didn't care about anything. I just needed to be more compensation for my teaching job, which I was making around 41,000. And I just need to be in a career where I could be in long term and not feel like I'm going to get burnt out again and again. And I told myself I did never expect myself to be in a corporate job. But I'm like, you know what? That seems to be the path I have to go. That seems to be the industry I need to be a part of. So I did the course. As you guys probably see all the time, people talk about the course and, it's pros and cons. But at the time, I thought it was amazing. It definitely helped, teach me the in and outs of being a data analyst, which is really something that's underrated. A lot of times people just look at, what does a data analyst do? They, SQL, Excel, Python, this, but like there's way more to it. You can know the technical skill, the tools that go into it, but if you don't know what a data analyst actually does, you're just gonna go in there and be lost all the time. There's so much more than just plugging in data and doing things in SQL and stuff. Like there's way more to that. So I appreciate that, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I did the certificate because I got COVID in September of last year. So it's September of 2022. I got COVID, and here in New Jersey, I had to stay home for 10 days. So in those 10 days, I mean, I just sat at my desk and I just did the whole certificate then. I didn't even stop. I probably put in 12, 13 hours a day with that thing, and I got it. I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm good to go. I guess I could just apply to jobs now. I mean, I have the certificate. It says that this is all I need. So, okay, I'm going to start applying for jobs. And I've never had to apply for a job before, really. Like with every job I've had, with those industries being in education and sports, more sports, like if you have the experience, like you don't need a crazy resume to get a job. With teaching, as long as you have your certificate and a bachelor's degree, most schools are looking for teachers like constantly, so you can just kind of just get a job with it without it being too much of an issue. So I had to create a full resume. It was really bad. Looking back at it now, it was bad. But at the time, I'm like, okay, I got my resume, did my certificate, I'm ready to get a job. And then the market's like, no, you're not. You're not ready. You're not ready. You are definitely not ready. And I was applying and applying. I can be a bit lazy, definitely going for easy apply jobs all the time. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to see where it goes. And then after a little bit of time, I'm like, wow, this is a lot more difficult than I thought. This is not going to come easy whatsoever. And then I got an interview for the company JLL. I believe that's what it is. They're a Fortune 500 company. They're huge with commercial real estate. And it's for a data analyst job. And I looked at it and I'm like, wow. And this was, I'd say now, beginning of October. So only a month into starting my journey, I was getting an interview request. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. After only a month. And then I take the interview and we're talking. And he asks a couple questions. And at the end, he's like, okay, do you prefer to work independently or as a team? And this is what I learned with interview. Sorry about that. What I learned about interviews is not to be too honest. I was way too honest. And I'm like, you know what? I do like to work. I like to work on my own. I don't really, I'd rather work on my own, get done that way. Ended up being I was too honest. And we talked afterwards, about a week later. And he's like, we're not going to move you to next round. And I'm like, okay, do you have any feedback? I know you might not be able to give me some, but do you have any? And he's like, yeah, I mean, the question about the independent and teamwork part, I mean, that was not a good one. So I learned right there. I'm like, okay, so I need to understand what companies are looking for. Like, what do I have to say? Not that I'm trying to lie. It's just like, okay, well, I need to learn how to interview. I feel like I could talk, but I don't know how to interview. I've never really had to do that before. So I definitely spent some time, on YouTube. I found Alex the Analyst, and I'm sure most of you know who he is, but I'm telling you, his content is top notch. Literally, from just understanding his journey, everything that he went through from the very beginning through the next few years after that, his interview tips, his experiences just were so valuable. And that's where I got the confidence to be like, okay, so everyone had to start from somewhere. No matter who you are, you had to start from somewhere. Whether you went through school, got your degree, or you have no degree and you're trying to become a data analyst, you have to start from the same point. So then I'm like, okay, let me improve my interview tips. Let me improve my resume. Let me add projects. That's where I found out how projects are a little more valuable, at least in my opinion. And I started, learning more SQL, Tableau. I mean, I chose Tableau not, because I did not like Power BI. It's just I have a Mac, and Tableau could be used on a Mac, and Power BI being a Microsoft tool, not really the best choice, and it could be very difficult to get onto a Mac. And Excel, I mean, I've had years of Excel experience, but that's another thing too. People I talk to, they say, oh, I've been using Excel all my life. But the problem is a lot of the tools in data analytics that you use in Excel, you've probably not used that much on your normal job. And that's what I learned. I'm like, oh, I have years of experience in Excel. I'm good. And I see some of the tools in Excel. I'm like, oh, I've never used that. But that's supposedly a common thing that's used in data analytics. So I told myself, like, no, I have to learn Excel for data analytics, not Excel for just regular formatting and things like that. No, I have to learn this. So going through that, making my own projects, updating my resume, that is where I believe I found the biggest change, is adding in those projects. And then along with that, after I made those changes, I had LinkedIn going. I created my account September of 2022. My gosh, brain just went out for a second. But I was a lurker. I never really posted anything, didn't interact with anybody. And then around the same time, early October of last year, I decided to make a post. And I joined Avery Smith's 21 days of data? Oh boy, 21 or 28 days of data. And I joined the class, and that's something I don't really do. I don't really join classes. I feel like I could do things on my own. I like to figure things out my way. Whether it's right or wrong, I just like to do things that way. I joined it, and he always encouraged people to post on LinkedIn daily, whether it be about what we're learning or a project. Just get out there and start posting. And I told myself that is way out of my comfort zone. That is not what I do. I don't really use any social media. I have all of them, the Facebook. Oh my gosh, I said the Facebook. I sound like my mom. Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. I have it, but I don't use it. I stopped using that years ago because I just didn't really care for it. So getting on LinkedIn was definitely very scary. And, I made my first post, saying, hey, looking forward to joining this class. And it got some reaction, actually, because I believe on Avery had a live going, and he saw my post, gave a little shout out, and it got some reactions. And I'm like, okay, this feels pretty good. It feels pretty good to, post something and it gets noticed. And I told myself, okay, so I'm ready. I'm going to do this. I feel like this is going to be the way I get my job, because clearly with my background and my experiences, that just probably will not work out. So I just continued to, working on LinkedIn, posting daily, working on my courses while also applying jobs. But also remember, I'm teaching every day. I am doing 2 other part-time jobs, and any interviews I only had like an hour window a day, which was from like 3:30 to 4:30. If a company couldn't do that time, I could not literally do the interview. I only got 5 days of PTO as a teacher. And if you're in education, you know how hard it is to take a day off for teaching. So I couldn't take a day off with no pay either. So I had to really make sure it was in that window, and also I had to do it at my desk too. So it was really difficult with time, and I'm really surprised I didn't get burnt out earlier because of all. And that's why I tell people all the time with the job search, it's not an easy process, and I try not to make it sound like it's an easy process. The amount of time that goes into it is one thing, but also the mental wear and tear is another, and I can't express how bad that is. The mental wear and tear was one thing, and it's also one thing where you're not getting much of a difference. You keep applying and applying, or posting and posting, and nothing's coming out of it. It really, devalues everything you're doing and just doesn't motivate you to want to do anything else. So I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing, posting, applying jobs. And then I got my next interview at LPL Financial. And I looked it up, and it was a Fortune 500 company in the finance industry. I'm like, you know what? This seems to be exactly what I want. The industry, I wanted either finance or healthcare. I knew healthcare would be kind of tough because I don't have any healthcare background, but I thought finance would be more reasonable to break into. So I'm like, okay, like this seems to be a pretty good opportunity. So I'm gonna go with this one. And I asked, okay, like when can you come in for an interview? Or actually, let me rewind a little bit. So this is important for people that use LinkedIn to find jobs. And this is where I tell people all the time, reach out to hiring managers, recruiters, things like that. And a lot of times people are like, oh, like I don't get responses. Well, that's very common. I don't get responses even to this day for a lot of things I reach out to people for. But this time I reached out to a recruiter at LPL. I applied for their data analyst job, and I reached out to him saying, hey, blank, I just applied for a job. Please take a look. If you have any questions, let me know. And at the time, I had a read receipt on LinkedIn, so I could see when people read my message. And then, oh boy, my cat wants to hang out. Not right now, Bo. Not right now. And sorry about that. And after that, the next day I woke up, and around 8:15 in the morning, I got a message from, or should I say, an email from LPL saying, "We are sorry, but will not be moving your application through." I'm like, okay, whatever, that's fine. I appreciate them actually getting back to me a little bit sooner than others. But then I noticed that the recruiter on LinkedIn checked his message at around 8:30, and at 8:45, I get an email from LPL saying, "Hey, do you want to come in for an interview?" Well, not come in, but do you want to have a Zoom interview? And I'm like, wait a second, you just emailed me 30 minutes ago saying you were not moving my application across. And they're like, "Oh, sorry, that was an error. We didn't mean to do that. Do someone come in for an interview?" And I still don't know to this day what exactly happened, but I could only assume that he saw my message, he looked at my application, and he's like, "Wait a second, this is actually a good applicant. Let's actually interview him." So that's where it goes into a lot of things where just because you don't get an answer doesn't mean they don't see it. So just remember that. So I had the interview. It went pretty well, 15 minutes, got it. And afterwards, I posted on LinkedIn that, just had my first interview, blah, blah. And that post blew up. I don't know how. I don't know what I did. I just went on there to post and just talk about my first interview. And that was awesome. That was literally awesome. And definitely getting that reaction definitely helped me feel more confident going into this process, being like, I got this. I can do this. Even though I don't have the data experience or anything like that, I can do this. Went on 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds. 5 rounds. And I did not get the job. That was absolutely brutal. And I'm very grateful in a way that I had that process happen, because at this point I've only been only looking for like a month and a half. I started in the beginning of September. Now it's like the end of October. So I get that, yes, I'm going through these interviews quickly. I'm getting interviews. I'm very fortunate for getting them. But it's still going through 5 rounds of, I don't have that much time in the day. I'm applying to jobs nonstop. I'm working on my resume. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm working a bunch of jobs I don't want to do. And to get rejected like that out of nowhere, 5 rounds, was terrible. I remember going to a local coffee shop right after I was done with my school day. I just sat there for about 3 hours of just wondering what the heck went wrong. Like, what did I do? And I think it's what a lot of people do when they don't get a job. They spend so much time with an interview process, and when they don't get a job, they start wondering, like, what did I do? Like, why did I not get that job? And I just think that's such an awful feeling. And it could really go 2 ways. Either it can motivate you to just move on, go to the next opportunity, or it could really halt everything, any progress you've made. And it almost was that second one. I remember telling myself, like, I don't know if I could handle the mental stress of this. I understand that it's going to be temporary pain. Once I get the first job, things get better, but I don't know. I didn't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could get back out there and like make that happen again, just because things are moving so quickly. I didn't expect to get interviews so quickly. And I'm telling you once again, it's not because of my technical skills. I still a lot of times these interviews, it's 50%, your resume. You need to have a good resume. That's one thing. If it's a bad resume, you will not get interviews. But also there's a little bit of luck and timing, because you don't really know who's looking at it. And you don't really know, like, let's say a recruiter looks at it and they see that you're a teacher, and maybe they used to be a teacher. That's just unnatural biasm that could come out. For example, for me, if I see someone who used to be a teacher or played sports, I'm naturally more, open to talking to them. It's just because I relate to their experiences. So going through all that, I realized myself, like, okay, I don't know what to do right now. I don't know if I could do this again. It's holidays are coming up. We got Thanksgiving, Christmas going on, and, bills are getting tight. Like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then the next day, I wake up to another email from LPL saying, hey, Chris, do you want to come in for an interview tomorrow? And I'm like, I just got rejected. Like, what is this? And I realized I applied for another job about like 10 days before. And I'm like, oh, I totally forgot. I'm like, yeah, I got time. Like, when do you want to have the interview? And I go, how's like tomorrow at like noon? So I went in for that interview. I sat down right where I'm at right here, put my laptop up. It was with 3 people. It went 20 minutes, and I thought it completely bombed it. I remember it precisely. And they asked many questions, some technical, some just about me, and I just wasn't prepared. I just don't think I was over what happened the other day, and I was just naturally just out of it. So I had that, and I closed my laptop, went to my fiance. I'm like, well, I guess, I don't have anything going on. I have no opportunities right now. Like, I guess I have to start fresh, and I don't know if I can do it anymore. And, she could be pretty, tough love. Get right to the point. Like, okay, you didn't do all this for nothing. Like, you're going to get back out there and do it. And that's sometimes what I need. Get a little kick in there and just get back out there. I went to school next day, and during my lunch break, I started applying for more jobs, doing my normal thing. And then I get a call from the LPL recruiter. And she's like, hey, Chris, do you have like 2 minutes? I'm like, yeah, I got 2 minutes. And I'm like, okay, great. Either I'm getting rejected, or I'm going to move on to the next round. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, I can't do another 4 more rounds or whatnot. I can't do it. And she's like, oh, okay, the team loved you, and, we'd like to move on to the next step. And I'm like, okay, well, cool. I'm free next week, anytime after like 3:30. And then she stopped right there, and she's like, no, they want to offer you the job. And I'm telling you right there and then, I will always remember that day. I will always remember that the feeling. I can't even describe it. It's perfect timing. Just sitting at my desk, eating my lunch, and as a teacher, you only maybe get 15 minutes, so I ain't got that much time. I'm sitting there, and when she says that, and I'm like, I kind of like blacked out for a second. I'm like, there's just no way this is happening right now. There's absolutely no way. And she talks about the job a little more in depth, the starting salary, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's already 50% more than what I'm getting as a teacher. Like, oh my gosh. And she's like, this fully remote position. And I don't know if it could have went any better. And, I want to say yes right away, but I'm like, what, let me take it home and take a look at the contract and everything. And I took the job 2 days later. And I'll tell people all the time, this journey will break you apart every single day. There's way more downs and ups, but I'm telling you, you could have the worst day of your journey, and the next could be the greatest. And I can be the prime example for that. Literally having the worst day. I'm sitting at a coffee shop by myself for 3 hours, just sitting there with a cup of coffee that was cold, ice cold, after a little bit of time, and going then the next day to getting an interview, and 2 days later getting a job offer. Like, I can't explain how much that meant. And just understanding that literally one day, 12 hours later, everything changed. And ever since then, I took that job. I was at LPL for about 7-8 months. Now I'm a data advisor at Cigna Healthcare, which is also another industry I was interested in. And I'm telling you, I got my job in 2 months. Not comment at all. Not trying to showboat or anything. I don't really talk about it that much, because if I say that, people ask, oh, like, how long did it take for you to get a job from start to end? I'm like, 2 months. They look at me like, oh, like, how'd you do it? Like, what are you, like, really good at something? Do you have experience? And I'm like, no, I didn't. And they ask, like, how'd you do it? And I'm like, well, there's some timing and luck involved. Like, you can't time up the market. There's no perfect opportunity. Like, you could just go on LinkedIn one day, apply for a job, and get it. I know a person who applied for one job, and he got it. I know people who've applied for 1,000 jobs, and they finally got one. It could also be a matter of, like I said, the timing and luck. But also, it's just how you interview. Because once you get into the interview, I feel like the biggest problem is people can't get interviews. That's a whole different situation. If you can't get interviews, there's many different reasons why. That's something for another video to go into. I could talk about that for hours. That's just a very tough topic to just talk about really quickly. But once you get an interview, it's your opportunity. If you mess it up, It's if you don't get the job, it's most likely something you did or how you responded, or maybe you didn't do good in a technical interview, or you didn't interview well naturally with the recruiter. But being able to use your soft skills, and that's where teaching came in a lot. Teaching and sports, working as a team, like leading the kids when it came to math, have controlling a room of 15 to 25 people. Like a lot of those soft skills came out in my interviews, and I didn't realize it. I didn't realize just how it came off, how it connected with people, how I could understand people really quickly, understand their personality so I could connect with them the best. It's something I didn't realize would come in so handy. So what I tell people all the time, if you're going through this industry, you have to understand why you're doing it. If you're doing it to get a quick payday, work from home, cool, that's fine. You could do that. Whatever your main reason is, that's fine. If it's compensation, I mean, look, that was 50% of mine. If that's what it is, cool, go with it. But make sure if you have a stronger reason, right? Like beyond that compensation, like, yes, I needed more money, but why did I need more money? I want to have a family. I want to move into a house. I want to live my life the way I want. That kept me going a lot. Through the dark times, through the down times, I kept telling myself, why am I doing this? Is it just to get a job? No, I'm doing this to change my life. And now, about a year after getting my first job, I'm going to be house hunting in a few weeks, making around 120% more than my teaching salary. I can't describe to you how much this industry could be once you get that first job. So whatever that reason is, whatever is the main reason behind what you're doing, let that drive you through the downtimes, the times you want to give up, the times you want to just stop everything and just move on. Let that reason take you through. So that's a little bit about my journey, going, like I said, from being in a pro shop manager through education and now into data analytics. I have many more topics I want to talk about in upcoming podcast episodes. But for now, like I said, I hope you all enjoyed this. I would love to learn more about you guys in the comments section or over on LinkedIn. And I look forward to seeing you guys on my next video. Take care.